Welcome back to My Best Friends and Engineer. I'm Lexi.
And I'm Libby.
And today we have a great interview with the founders of The Thoughtful Co. Jill and Sophie will be presenting the compensation negotiation workshop we have coming up on October 18th. So go check that out on our Instagram. We have all of the information in our bio.
Yes, but before we get into it, Lexi, give us the tea of the week. How has your week been?
The tea of the week, let's see. See, this is weird because we had our little strategy meeting, which we talked about in this episode. We had our little strategy meeting yesterday. Yesterday was good too. It was Labor Day. I actually worked like quite a bit.
You worked?
Yeah,
Why did you work, girl? What the heck?
I was not as productive as I would have liked last week, but I totally set myself up. I mentally prepared for this since last week. But yeah, it was just a nice little busy day. The weekend was good. Went to the city. It was so rainy, so cold. If you're from the Midwest, Wisconsin was probably bad too, right?
Yeah, it was a sad Labor Day week. Or Labor Day? Memorial Day. I always get them mixed up. Which one
was
it?
No, it's Labor Day. Labor Day.
It was Labor Day. Okay.
But yeah, so the weather wasn't great, but I mean, we still took a boat out and then we just scurried home. It started raining. We were like, it was just like, whoosh, like all the waves. Just like, I was like, am I going to fall over? It's like, oh God. So we scurried back. But we were out there for like only 2 hours on Lake Michigan. And then other than that, hung out in the city. I feel like I hadn't gone into the city in forever. So it was good end to the week because I was wholesome and I did work and I cleaned my room yesterday. So the classic little Sunday behavior on Labor Day. How about you? How was your week though? You had golf last week. You had
oh my God. Outing. I have a lot of things to update you on. Okay, so Thursday was the golf outing. It was good. It was exhausting. So we got to the course. So basically, out of our department, half the people went paintballing and half the people went and played golf. So there's probably like 25 of us that played golf, like 25 to 30 people that did paintballing. And then we met up at a park after and we had lunch. So I went golfing. I got a gift card for longest drive in the women's division. Because I was the only woman.
Oh, really?
I was the only one.
That's so funny.
So they were handing out gift cards at the end for like, because they did like longest drive, shortest putt, like most amount of balls lost. And they're going through. And I was like, what about the women's division? And they were like, Libby, you were the only girl. And I'm like, yeah, the women's division. And so they gave me a gift card.
That's so funny. I was going to say, look at you. You're so good. But, I mean, you probably are good. Oh my God, I just realized how that sounded.
No, because I was playing with all men and they like hacked the ball so far. Actually, I was playing really terribly. It was honestly kind of embarrassing because I was totally hyping up like my golf skills all week long, being like, oh, you guys don't know what's coming. Like, I'm so good at golf. And then I like played so terribly. Oh my God. But by the way, during golf, so I'm driving the little golf cart, right? Like for those listening, you can't see me, but I'm pretending to drive a golf cart. And a bee flew into my armpit and stung me. I got a bee sting in my armpit at my golf outing for my company team outing.
That is so unfortunate. I feel like that's like the odds of that are like, I don't even know. But you did it.
The guy that was sitting next to me, who was in my cart, was my mentor, my guy mentor that I always talk about. So he's driving with me. And I'm going and I get stung and I look at him and I'm like, I think I just got stung by a bee. And he's like, what the heck? Where? And I'm like, in my armpit. So then we like stop the car and I'm like, hold on my armpit. I'm like, can you guys look at my armpit? Do you see a bee sting? And sure enough, there's a little stinger sitting in my armpit. And I had to pull it out and I could hold it up. And I was like, what the heck? You guys just all looked at my armpit. That is so embarrassing.
I was going to say team bonding. I was like,
I know.
You guys bonded. How fun.
I know. So that is my tea of the week. It was low-key kind of uncomfortable, but, you know, I just went with it and made a joke of it. And I was like, wow. And I was actually, like, in pain. I was like, you guys, anyone have an ice cube? This freaking hurts.
That's so funny. I don't know if I would choose golf or paintballing. I feel like golf would be a safe option because I went once with you. That was literally the only time I've ever golfed, actually. I haven't gone since. I keep meaning to. But I feel like I would embarrass myself. But then paintballing, I would embarrass myself even more, probably. I don't know.
So I didn't well, I chose golf because I like to golf, but if I didn't like to golf, I don't know if I would have chose paintballing. But it was funny because so I think there's 4 or 5 women in our department, and we have a little teams chat, and we were talking about it when like this team bonding first came up, and we were like, should we just go rogue and do a wine and paint instead, because like nobody really liked the options that were offered. But we didn't do that. We're gonna do that instead, like a different time. That'll be a good like winter activity. But yeah, so that's what I did on Thursday, and then it was the state, or not the state fair, the county fair. So I saw some cows. I went to a concert and saw a little demolition derby. Saw some monster trucks. Saw some goats. Drank some
So Wisconsin of
lemonade.
you.
I had a
Love.
loaded baked potato.
So you were set up for success this weekend.
Oh yeah, we had a great Labor Day weekend. But with that, I think we should get into our listeners' tea of the week. So I want to see if anybody went to a fair this week, what everyone did, what everyone's up to.
All right, Ava, let's see what Ava has for us. She said, one of my professors gave me 5 assignments and an exam this week. Good luck. That is so early. That's so early.
And
It's
on a holiday
September.
weekend? That is
Wow.
mean. That's
Yeah.
rude.
Oh my gosh. God, and you know those teachers, they just no chill. They're just not happy to
That's
be there.
annoying.
They're just like, I'm gonna make everyone's life just unfortunate. It's always the teachers that are there for research. The tenured
know.
ones that just don't care, you know. Good luck, Ava. Let us
Good
know how it
luck.
goes.
Yeah. All right. Gabby said she is quiet quitting because she realized that a government job pay is insultingly low. And oh my God, couldn't be a more better tea of the week for the episode that we've got today, talking all about compensation negotiation. Get it, girl. Know your worth. Go find a job that is going to pay you a lot better. I am a total stan for that.
Yes. All right, and then we can close out with Cassidy's tea of the week. She said, my university has no AC in any buildings. It's supposed to be in the 90s all week, and they didn't make any classes online. Also, 95% of the buildings here have no AC, so there's no relief from the heat. That makes me happy. I work in an office.
Sending hugs.
Do you remember like walking to class? You know, Ohio was pretty hot during the summer. I would be sweaty. Like, I would walk with my backpack. It would be like end of August,
Dude,
beginning of September.
that's
I
why
was
I
not
would-
having fun.
That's why I would rollerblade to class, because I was trying to get some air going in between my armpits because I was sweating so much.
You're like, can I get a bee up in here?
Sad.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Amazing.
If you guys would like to submit your tea of the week, be sure to follow us on Instagram at My Best Friends in Engineer. We post a question box every week so that you can share your highs, lows, and drama for the week.
Yes, and also on in our Instagram bio, we have our event that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to push that this episode because we are so excited about it, and we are so excited to learn more about what Thoughtful Co has to offer.
Yes, and be sure you guys are getting tickets after you listen to this episode. You're going to be so excited to join the compensation negotiation workshop. We do have only a limited available number of spots, so once it sells out, it sells out. So be sure to get your ticket.
And with that, I think let's hear what Jill and Sophie have to say. Today's guests are Jill and Sophie with The Thoughtful Co. But before we get more into The Thoughtful Co. and the services you guys offer, can you both give a bit of background information on yourselves and your work experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go first. My name's Sophie and my background is in structural engineering. So yay to all the engineers listening. When I started my career, I found oftentimes it was difficult for me to connect with other women, just both as peer support, but also mentorship. I'm sure lots of your listeners notice it is a very male-dominated industry, and more so in some disciplines than others. And so when I was working as a structural engineer, I was finding I needed additional resources of support just because sometimes I couldn't find mentors who were like me. And so in that experience, I started to reach out to other women that I was working with at the firm I was at the time to help kind of mutually sort of support each other and find opportunities to connect with women also in other firms as well. Just finding, because there's so few, if you just are limited to your own firm, sometimes that's a really small pool. And so that led me to start an employee resource group at that company and then co-chair that for a few years. But then a couple of years later in 2018, I co-founded Women in Consulting Engineering, or WCE Vancouver. And so that's a community based out of Vancouver that in Canada that helps to connect women working in the engineering consulting industry, just to build friendships as well as networking and just create that sense of visibility and community. And it's been really exciting to see it grow. And in the 4 years since it launched, it's now grown to over 500 members and is now going into a new city. So it's going into Calgary, Canada, starting in September as well. So it's really been exciting. And yeah, working as a structural engineer as well, I focus primarily on residential and high-rise buildings. As I kept working, there was kind of a bug in my ear to keep working in this gender equity space. So that's when, about a year ago, Jill and I got together and launched the Thoughtful Co., hoping to provide that gender equity support to more industries as well.
And I'll go next. So I've spent a bit of a different career than maybe some of the listeners on this podcast. I've spent my career in executive compensation. So started off in consulting, helping board of directors figure out how to pay their top executive teams, which is a lot of base salary and bonus, but really a focus on longer term equity design. So things like stock options and RSUs, and how that kind of incentivizes executives and links to shareholder value and all those good things. And then after that, I led compensation in-house at Aritzia, and most recently was at Lululemon, where I led the global executive and equity compensation teams. So really I've spent my full career on the other side of the negotiating table and saw so many successful, intelligent women not negotiating their compensation at really key points in their career. And that was junior employees to the most senior executives. And so I always wanted to do something about that, and ended up leaving Lululemon to co-found the Thoughtful Co., where we support women in gender equity initiatives and also support women in negotiating for the compensation they deserve.
Amazing. If you guys can't tell, and for people listening, you can't tell, but I'm sitting over here smiling because like your guys' mission is totally aligns with our podcast and what we're trying to do as well. So it's great to have you guys on as guests. But I wanted to dig in a little bit to the Thoughtful Co. How did it start? First of all, how did you guys know each other like beforehand? And then like what sparked this idea? Can you give our listeners like that story? Take us on that journey. How did we get to where we are today with the Thoughtful Co.?
Yeah, absolutely. We met at first when we were both doing our undergrads at Western, which is in London, Ontario in Canada. Jill and my partner were both in the same business program. And so we knew each other for a little while at school, and then ultimately both ended up back in Vancouver. That's where Jill's from originally. And I think over the years, we talked so much about, having very different backgrounds, but our passion for gender equity in the workplace and how important it was to us and how can we support it more wholly, and also, is there a way to make this a job? But it was just kind of a bug in the back of our, heads for a few different years. And when Jill left her job last year, I was so curious to see what she was doing, and she had kind of started the idea, had come up with the name, and originally it just started as a blog, wanting to write about issues that were important to us and share our experiences, and it really grew organically from there into what it is now. But really at the beginning it was just a blog, and it's been really cool to see it grow into something quite different.
Yeah, we didn't really intentionally set out to, create a company, but so exciting where it's gone now. And yeah, for me, after we had started doing the blog, I had a old business school contact reach out to ask me if I could help them negotiate their compensation. And I said yes, and I loved it. And that's where we kind of thought through this idea. because it doesn't really exist. There's not a lot of other, direct support systems for women in negotiating. So it's new, but we're excited to be doing it.
That's awesome that you guys met in undergrad. It's a little deja vu moment. Like,
Similar story.
Yes. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit more about what made you want to specifically focus on, helping women and empowering them and all things negotiation and just in the workforce in general? Was there, a personal story that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I can go first. I think it was, in some ways, and a lot of this is coming from privilege. I think when I was in my undergrad, I did not necessarily notice how gender impacted my day-to-day necessarily. I think academically, engineering is more equitable, the gap is closer, and then also you're just kind of working quite independently. And so I think I was protected from some of that bias as well. Engineering is a little bit more, in most cases, right answers and wrong answers, at least at school. So I think I was also protected from, I had peers who were in different disciplines or different degrees, who would, get a really weird low grade on something or a really high grade and couldn't explain it. Whereas when I knew something and I didn't know something, it was pretty clear that was the wrong answer was the right answer. And it wasn't my prof maybe interpreting what I was doing differently. And it wasn't until I started working that I started to see, oh, maybe it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to network, and it's a little bit more awkward for me to ask a client to go for a drink and instantly they're like, oh, I have a girlfriend. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to develop a professional relationship, and it gets awkward. And I think it was a lot of small things like that I started to slowly see, oh, I can see why this is a challenge. And then I would talk to more and more women who were struggling with the same things, and it'd gotten so much better than it was talking to someone who's, been in the industry for 25 years, but it still felt like it can be better still. And I think wanting to build that for myself and then for the people around me slowly just got this passion to make positive change.
Yeah, and for me, I think I was really shy growing up, and I'm still pretty introverted and shy, but I hide it more. But I've always just been so passionate and fierce about feminism. I don't know why. It's just something inherent in me. I've always felt it's important to, have a really great career. I've always been passionate about that, making my own money, really be passionate about finances, making sure I'm invested, setting myself up for success, and helping other women around me. And I don't honestly know where that came from, but it's kind of been with me since elementary school. I can still remember instances. And then I think throughout my career, I've been really lucky. I've worked in two very female-dominated companies, Aritzia and Lululemon, where they have, very senior female executives running things and just doing an incredible job. And so I've been really lucky in that way, but still I saw gender imbalances throughout my career, and yeah, I always wanted to do something about that. And I think helping women negotiate now and being with them on that personal journey is the most rewarding thing I've done in my career. And yeah, it just brings me joy to help women actually get paid what they deserve.
Yeah, Jill, I totally get what you're saying about like the financial aspect, because on my social media pages, not only am I advocating for women in STEM, but I'm also sharing like my journey to paying off debt and like trying to normalize that. And it's like, I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I just feel like people need to hear about this.
Yeah.
But Sophie, I wanted to touch on, I think we wanted to go into a little bit more in depth with each of you of some questions based on your personal backgrounds. And Sophie, I don't have too much negotiating experience. Lexi just helped me negotiate for my first time ever when I just got my new job. So I totally see what you're saying with like negotiating in the engineering male-dominated field. It can feel very intimidating and like you're the little girl that's like asking for more money. I don't know, like that's just kind of how I felt. But kind of interested with like how engineering and the thoughtful co intersects. Did you specifically use any of your skills that you learned like while you were in engineering school or like through your undergrad or university experience to get the thoughtful co started up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it seems theoretically like such a totally different career path and unrelated when you look at it on paper. But I think so much of what I learned in engineering, I'm still applying in terms of problem solving and being very data focused, because I think historically, when we've talked about equity, diversity, and inclusion in so many environments, it's been very education focused, which is really important, but not necessarily measured and set around goal setting. And I think my sort of analytical mindset from engineering has really been applied into my work in the Thoughtful Co. And when we work with clients, really helping them define targets so that they can work towards a specific goal in their gender equity path, and then also being able to measure and benchmark different policies that they're implementing so that they know how impactful something is. Because I think if you're not measuring it and setting real goals, then it's really difficult to know if you're making any change or if you're wasting resources and doing something that's not working that well. And I think so much of that comes from my background in engineering and being very numbers focused, and pairing that with something that's very, passionate and positive to the world, I think is really great too. But so much of it is really about, that analytical side from engineering.
I was going to say, I feel like that aligns with what you said before. You in undergrad, it was a yes or no. You got it right or you didn't. You meet the goal or you don't. So it's funny how it all comes full circle, the engineering personality.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get away from it.
Yes. It's a blessing and a curse sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on the day. Well, Jill, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your experience working at larger companies like Aritzia and Lululemon that almost everyone knows. I don't know who wouldn't know, who wouldn't recognize the name. And then, your experience at a larger company like those versus starting up the Thoughtful Co. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. It was a significant shift. I spent my full career in the corporate world, either consulting for pretty big companies or working in them. And to be honest, at the start, I had no idea what I was doing. And I would say there's just really different stressors than there are in the corporate world. In the corporate world, my stress was more around, never-ending workload, not enough hours in the day, managing a team and making sure they're all good. That was more kind of the stresses. And then the successes were more, team success, having a great meeting, presenting to the board or whatever it might be. Whereas being in a startup, the stressors are more, I have a million things that I could be doing and which one should I focus on? And there's more, it's just a totally different mindset. You can be creative. Like I've spent a career being quite analytical as well, working with numbers and, in the business world, and now getting to be creative and getting to try new things, test new things. I run all our finances internally, which has been awesome. Running our own income statement, doing all the billing. Doesn't sound exciting, but I really like it. Sophie does all our marketing, so she's learning all about social media and all these kind of things. And I'm sure you both have experienced a bit of it as well. So the learning is incredible. The flexibility and control over your time is invaluable for me. I've never in my life thought I would be an entrepreneur. I didn't even consider it. I'm very risk averse. But now that I'm in it, it's I know it's the right path for me. And I love talking to other women about it because I feel as women, we are usually risk averse with our money for sure. We're usually more conservative, but I want more women to take the lead because I think we need more female founded companies. And it's been a great journey. There's different ups and downs than the corporate world, but it fits so much better for me, which I never would have known unless I started it.
Yeah, we totally can probably relate to what you're saying with there being just so many things and you're not sure what to focus on when you're at your own company, because even just with our podcast, we've been trying to do just meetings where we don't record, but we just sit down and try to get things done, and we're like, oh my God, what do we even do right now? We have so many things to do.
Yeah, there's never ending list.
I'm like, okay, let's get Canva Premium. I was like, that'll be our marketing. I'm like, let's get those templates.
Oh wow, Canva is my favorite thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
You have some really, I was gonna say, you have some really good templates. I like your Instagram.
Yeah, thank you, Canva.
Very well planned.
That's Sophie. You know, who knew an engineer could be so good at marketing?
Right. So you touched on a little bit, working at these larger companies, you experienced and you kind of saw a lot of situations where women were kind of selling themselves short. Can you kind of talk more about that and maybe give a little bit of advice and, to our listeners of how to avoid that? And maybe this can transition into talking about, the services the Thoughtful Co. offers.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, I saw it from the other side of the table in corporate for quite a while, but I didn't really know why it was happening. And now that we're in the position where we're helping women negotiate, I would say over 90% of our clients say the same things to us. They say, I just felt lucky to be there, so I didn't want to ask for more money, or I wanted to prove myself first before negotiating. And truly, C-suite executives have said that to us, to new university grads. Like, it's the same thing. So it's this imposter syndrome, or whatever you want to call it, throughout our whole career, where we feel like we just somehow fell into this role, like we didn't earn it, we don't deserve it. And so I think that's the biggest thing holding us back. Like, we're our own barriers within this. And so I think the first step when we work with clients is really just trying to build up that confidence, and knowing that negotiation is not a taboo thing. Everyone does it. You're in an employee-employer relationship. It's part of that relationship. So kind of normalizing it and helping clients to understand that, it doesn't need to be seen as this big, aggressive, negative thing. You can negotiate in a positive way. And building that confidence to help clients understand that they should be there, they deserve to be there. I just had a client last week who got a senior offer at a tech startup, and she said to me, I don't think I can accept it because I don't think I can do the job. And I said, you already got the offer. So it is crazy how we face all these biases throughout our life, and we definitely subconsciously internalize them, and they really, really impact us in negotiations. So the biggest thing is kind of getting out of your own way, knowing those things exist, and then feeling confident to really ask for what you deserve.
I think it's so interesting that you say that this is like kind of a widespread almost like phenomenon or like thought or belief that a lot of women have, because I mean, it's so true. Like, I have other women in my department who are other engineers at the company that I work for, and we've even talked about it before with like just career goals and stuff. And there's 4 of us in my department, and we are always talking, and we're like, okay, well, I have this presentation to run, and I really need to do a good job because I want to make sure that people take me seriously and like all this stuff. And then we're all like reminding each other, like, hey, we're here for a reason. We don't need to constantly be like proving ourselves that we like deserve to be here or something.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's crazy.
But kind of going into the Thoughtful Co., this will be a good transition because this is what the company is all about. For each of you guys, Jill and Sophie, what are some of the favorite services that the Thoughtful Co. offers, or like what are your favorite services that you get to give to your clients?
I can go first with one. I think one of my favorite things to do is supporting companies in developing employee resource groups, or ERGs. If people aren't familiar with what an ERG is, it's a group of individuals with a shared experience who get together in mutual support. So a lot of times we think of people who are minorities within an organization, so in this case, a women's ERG. And I often find this is like the front line of achieving gender equity at a company, because how else can you find what the needs are of the individuals at your company? Because there isn't some sort of one-size-fits-all solution to solving gender equity in a workplace. If there was, everyone would be doing it. The reality is it's so different in the industry you're in, the company you're at, the region that you're in, what the cultural dynamics are of your company. Is it really social focused or more independent work, etc.? All those things play into what's going to help your company work. And I think an ERG is such a great first step because it can help those individuals develop policies that might make them feel supported. And it's also a great kind of day one support because you can build that sense of community by getting a bunch of women and allies together to talk about, this is really important to me and I want to help our company grow and invest in this. So I really like that because it's so, I think, valuable to the individuals.
Yeah, and I think mine would be probably two things. One is just getting to know industries that are much more male dominated and helping those industries. Like we're helping a construction client right now, and Sophie has not been surprised by anything she's seen, but it's just different for me coming from Lululemon and Aritzia, where it's all women and that now it's all men. So I think that's been really awesome to see the impact we can have in those industries. And then I would say the compensation negotiation support for women, probably my favorite services are the one-on-one support where I actually get to talk you through how you're going to prep for the negotiation, what you want to ask for, what are the key components you want to push on, all those different pieces, and just be that resource for people going through a negotiation, because you kind of are on an island, you're kind of alone. So being that support system, but also providing, data, facts, stuff like that, so you feel really, really confident. And then contract reviews, I actually think is probably the most valuable service we offer individual clients. Being able to go through a whole contract and saying, hey, what does this mean? Let's ask more questions about this bonus structure. Why are they putting in a 12-month non-compete when you're getting no severance? Like all these other different pieces, like flexible work schedules, role scope, reporting structure, PTO. There's so many other pieces in contracts that a lot of people just kind of skip over. But they really can have meaningful impact on your life, on where you can go next, on how much flexibility you have in that situation, on higher earning potential things like bonuses and equity. So there's a lot we can do there. So from a tangible work output perspective, I love doing that because it's really value add to women.
I was going to say, I totally agree with your point of people skipping over those details, because some of the things you mentioned, I know I didn't even look at in my offer letter. It's either you're super excited, you're like, thank God, or like you mentioned, you're like, okay, I'm so surprised I was able to get this offer, and then that just imposter syndrome is stuck in your head. But you're listing all these things off. I'm like, okay, I didn't look at that. Oh God.
And everything is negotiable. Like, I think we don't think about it, but everything in that contract is negotiable. Like, there's some pieces like intellectual property or stuff like that, confidentiality, that they probably won't want to change for just you. But yeah, things like non-competes, non-solicit, severance, there's so many other kind of legal policies that companies do change for different people.
Can you talk a little bit more about your experience, working in a, like Lululemon and Aritzia, where there were mainly women, versus this new client you're working with, in the construction industry? Do you see a difference between the offers, like in the construction or male-dominated field? Is there like a huge gap? Just out of curiosity, maybe. You can't talk about it, but
yeah, I don't think I can talk in detail about that, but I think the biggest difference is just sometimes bigger companies versus smaller companies. So seeing the different offers for, like a massive global company, public company maybe, versus a tech startup or something like that. There's a lot less in the small offers. So sometimes at that point it's talking about what is not in those offers. So, things like role scope is often, I see a lot of ones where it's not in there. Reporting structure, start date, like very basic things that you don't always think about are necessary, but can really be important when it comes into play. So there's definitely a big difference. But by industry, it's more about the company and kind of like, do they have an HR team who's really focused on this, or is this maybe kind of more of an afterthought for them?
Got it. That would be so interesting because you saw both sides of it.
Yeah. It's crazy the variety of offers I've seen and how, they're very different. You kind of think you always get a standard offer, but there's a lot of different kinds for sure.
Definitely. Are there any services that the Thoughtful Co offers that you guys didn't mention?
Yeah, I would say within the individual compensation negotiation, we have a range of services kind of depending on where you're at in your career and what's most helpful. So, from one on one prep sessions that I mentioned, to contract reviews, and then as you start getting more senior in your career, things like financial modeling of your compensation. So, creating models of your compensation to look at it over the next 5 years and incorporating things like equity vests and those pieces. And we also do senior executive peer analysis, which once you get to a certain level, we can do that. So there's a lot of complex things that we can do or simple things that we can do. And we do tailor to the client. So whatever is most helpful, we have individual services or packages if you're going through a promotion or performance review, stuff like that, where you might need ongoing support instead of just one time.
Yeah, the other piece I would add too is doing our benchmarking from an employer support perspective, because what we like to do when we start with a new company is actually doing a gender breakdown of their organization. And so is the gender disparity consistent across all disciplines? Maybe it's a multidisciplinary firm. And is it consistent across different levels, or is there more equity at a junior level, and does it taper off as you get to a senior level? We do see that a lot, but not in all cases. And so then we can really tailor our support to that individual company. So or is there a lot of departures at a particular level, and more so of women or men, etc.? So then we can tailor our support very much to recruitment initiatives or succession planning or retention, and really focus on a few key areas that suit them. And again, that might look very different at different companies, even if their overall wash is similar. It's typically quite variable what each company is dealing with.
So speaking of compensation negotiation, on October 18th, my Best Friends Engineer podcast is going to be doing a compensation negotiation with the Thoughtful Co. So would you guys be able to give our listeners an overview? What will someone gain from attending this workshop?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of stuff packed into this workshop. This is our most popular one, so we've kind of refined it over the past year to be most high impact. And I would say one of the really key pieces we talk about is how compensation decisions are made within companies. Because after I left the corporate world, I kind of realized it's this black box to most people. They don't know when and how decisions are made. So really equipping you with information to understand how decisions are made, when they happen, and what is really expected to be negotiated. So that's a big piece of what we talk about. We also talk about the biases women face and making sure we understand them, and then how to kind of navigate them and get around them. We talk about negotiating in a really clear, concise way, and the preparation that can be really helpful for it. We talk about lots of other things, market data and where you can look, and what other factors companies take into account beyond just market data. Sophie, anything else I'm missing?
No, I think you covered all the main ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of
yeah,
pieces.
And it's such a powerful workshop, because I think it is so easy, as we've talked about, to underestimate yourself when you're negotiating, and also particularly in male-dominated industries. I mean, Libby, I think you touched on it a little bit before too, like that feeling of, if you don't look like everyone else in the room, it's so easy to just say thanks for having me and not negotiate. And so I think it's so important to have conversations like this and be more open about negotiating, and that it's totally normal and it's positive.
Mm-hmm. And we do leave time for questions and answers at the end, which is sometimes actually the best part of these workshops, because we can, talk about what individual people are going through and how to approach that situation. So love the Q&A part of it as well.
I like that you touch on the market analysis aspect, because I hit my 1 year at my company, and my manager, I was really lucky to be in this position. He said, "What do you want? What are you looking for the next year?" I had no idea where to start. I had absolutely no idea. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that would be, I can't wait to learn more about that, first of all.
Yeah. There isn't a
And next year I'll do it better.
There isn't a perfect market data source, which is a spoiler, but there's definitely ways that you can prepare for those conversations. Because I'm kind of hearing that happen more, which is great, but it can be intimidating when you have no idea what to ask for. So
definitely, yeah. I was like Googling. I was like, no idea what I'm doing.
What do I ask for?
That's awesome. And can you talk about how our listeners might get the most out of this compensation negotiation event and this workshop? Kind of, any advice in that regards?
Yeah, I think kind of thinking about where you're at in your career, and we touch on this a bit in the workshop, but thinking a bit more strategically about your compensation. So where you're at right now and where you want to be in the next couple of years, in the next 5 years. And, if year end is coming up soon for most companies, if you have a calendar year end. So thinking about those year end performance reviews and how you might want to prep for that. And then you can come in advance with any questions you have that you're thinking through before the presentation. And then we'll go through those all in the Q&A at the end. So if there's anything we don't touch on, we can chat through at the end. I think that's probably the main thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on today's podcast. Before we wrap it up, we ask our guests this one final question, and we'll start with Sophie and then we'll go to Jill. But the question is, knowing what you know now, if there is one piece of advice that you could give your younger self, what would it be?
Ooh, I feel like mine, it's a coincidence that it happens to relate so much to negotiation and asking for what you deserve. I just think I remember so well graduating engineering, and my partner, he's also an engineer, and at the time I think I thought this was more our personalities and not necessarily relating to, women and men biases. But when we were looking at job offers, at job postings, I would, have 9 of 10 things and not apply to some things. I'm like, oh, I won't get it because I don't have the 10th. And he'd have 2 of 10 and apply. And it was so different, and also being more confident, reaching out to whoever he knew who might know someone who knew someone, etc. And part of that, I think, is also he's probably more extroverted than I am. But I would say if I could go back and tell myself something graduating, and also just job hunting in general, to just reach out and, do those intimidating but coffee reach outs on LinkedIn or whoever it is that knows someone, and just applying, because the worst thing you get is a no. You might as well just go for it.
Yeah, mine's kind of similar, also kind of cheesy, but this is what popped into my mind, so I'm going to go with it. It's to just take the risk. I think I've had many points in my career where I've kind of stewed over, like I've known that I've wanted to do something, and it's taken me longer or a while to do it. But every time I've taken a risk in my career, it's paid off. And there have definitely been bumpy rides throughout that. It's not always a straight away amazing payoff, but it's always led me to better places. And it's something that I'm proud of myself that I've done in the past, and I want to really make sure I keep doing. And so, yeah, I think I would say take the risk and not be so worried about it. Just do it.
Do you guys have anything else you want to touch on? Maybe event-wise, background-wise, anything you want to talk about?
I think maybe just if you're interested in what we do and learning more about the workshop that's coming up, you can look us up online at www.thethoughtfulco.net. We're also on LinkedIn, The Thoughtful Co, and Instagram at thethoughtful.co.
And we'll make sure to include everything in the show notes. So if you guys are listening and you're interested in the Thoughtful Co services, you want to seek them out for individual help, or you just want to follow along with their social media, it'll all be linked down below. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Thank you, Sophie and Jill, for joining us today. And we're looking forward to the negotiation compensation workshop on October 18th.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Jill and Sophie for coming on to today's podcast episode. I hope you guys love this episode as much as we did. It was so interesting to hear their perspectives on all things compensation and negotiation. Like Lexi, I know that you and I have talked about it before, but it was interesting to like hear other women's perspectives, if you know what I mean.
Definitely. And I feel like Jill seems like she's so much experience with that. And I love the fact that we can bring in Sophie's engineering. It's just a little full circle moment. But
exactly.
I am so excited for the event on October 18th. So make sure you guys go check it out.
Yes. And if you guys love this episode as much as we did, please be sure to text it to a friend who may need to hear this advice, share it on your Instagram stories, and share it with any other girly girls who may need to learn more about negotiating their compensation. Also, be sure to go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and a review on Spotify and Apple Podcast. The written reviews on Apple Podcast really help us. You guys, we are taking the podcast really seriously. We upload weekly episodes every Monday, so we love reading your reviews and your ratings. It really helps us out, so be sure you go do that after you listen to this episode.
All right, well, where can they find you if they want to tell you about their job offer that they just got?
Yes, if you guys want to follow me on social media, you can find me at Libby Beyond the Label on Instagram and TikTok. And then, Lexi, where can they find you?
You can find me at Engineer Lexi on Instagram and TikTok.
And then if you guys want to follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok, we're at My Best Friends and Engineer. And on YouTube, we are BFE Podcast.
Yes, and like we said, go check out our bio for all the links. Tell us your tea of the week. Join our Facebook group. Check out the event.
We got a lot going on.
So much, but we love it. We love it that way.
All right, I think with that, we can close out another great episode of My Best Friends and Engineer.
I'm Lexi.
And I'm Libby.
And thanks for listening to My Best Friends and Engineer.